Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians. I'm Simona.
Amanda.
Katie.
Oh, are we doing that? Going around?
Yeah.
Do we always do that?
No.
No, but I thought it's fun.
Oh, okay. I'm Lewis.
Yes, it is fun. Awesome.
You never know.
Amanda.
Someone might be starting now.
That's true, and they don't know us. Weekly Breaking Bad update. Quick.
Finished Breaking Bad.
And?
I loved it. It was a Greek drama. I love it. Greek tragedy. Loved it. Ending was great. People who said they didn't like the ending.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't like the
I'm on
ending
Better
of
Call
it.
Saul. I'm on season 2, episode 7. Absolutely loving it. I'm waiting for El Camino. I know I technically don't have to watch it, but at the same time, I plan on
El
watching
Camino
it.
is really good.
Yeah, I
Well, I
liked it.
plan on watching
I'm a
it.
fan
I
of
just
that
went
one.
right into Saul because I really like Saul.
Yeah.
So that's been a fun ride too. It's part of the Breaking Bad universe. Saul origin stories. Absolutely love him to death. His brother needs to get punched in the face. Every time I see him, I want to jump at the screen.
Agreed.
Leave
Like-
Chuck alone, okay? He is very sensitive to electricity.
I don't care. There was a scene literally in the episode I just watched where he came back home and he was freaking out in his little stupid space blanket, and then Saul comes home after he just ruined his life again, and I'm like, let him suffer. Let him suffer. Just leave him there. Let him suffer.
Amanda, when you develop a mysterious sensitivity to electricity, you're not going to be laughing so much.
I won't laugh, but I don't
facts.
want to ruin my siblings' chances at a good career or something. Just when they're getting ahead, it's like he takes one step and then Chuck's like, "Nah, let's take that back like 5 steps," and I'm just like, come on, swinging.
You know, that show, Better Call Saul, did a good job of bringing in a Breaking
Mike?
Bad character. Well, Mike, of course. Mike is the best. But when they brought in, I think it's the first episode, right? They bring in Tuco. When they bring him
I was
back,
like, is that?
I'm like, that's Vince Gilligan recognizing that people loved Tuco, and he could just expand on him even
Well,
more.
it's not just that. They brought in I didn't expect them to go back and see that it's not just Tuco, but they had the old guy in the wheelchair. I'm like, oh my god, he's talking this time. I'm like he's not ringing a little bell, making.
One of my friends is always a little bit suspicious of prequels and stuff like that because he's like, sometimes they can make the universe end up seeming smaller rather than larger. But with Better Call Saul, it definitely makes it feel larger. And there's.
It's like how long can you go with just it being Saul, but then you add Mike into the mix? First off, best granddad ever. Love him.
He is cool.
He's the best.
And weekly Peaky Blinders update?
Oh, I haven't finished it yet.
Well, where are you?
I'm at the start of season 5, since
Cool.
season 6 has not started yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to start watching it again.
Yeah. And what did you think of season 4?
It was great.
What happened in season 4 again?
It was
Don't spoil, no spoilers, but who was
Who was the main daddy?
Yeah.
It was Adrian Brody.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Changretta.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the toothpicks.
God, it's like, I mean, his character was great as a character, but the stereotypes of the wise guy from Brooklyn with the toothpick constantly in his mouth is kind of
Agreed.
overplayed.
I understand. Did you guys ever see Gangster Squad?
No.
No, I heard it was
Horrible.
What just oh, we want to do Untouchables, but no one involved.
Yeah.
The actors could handle it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to.
Good.
The actors,
great cast,
but everyone behind the scenes was just whatever.
Possibly one of the worst, most disappointing movies I've ever seen. But to speak on your point with Changretta, there's a part where Sean Penn is eating something, and he goes, "I only have one fork and one knife because I like to be exclusive." And I'm like, "What?"
That doesn't make you
the
exclusive.
Wait, I'm sorry, this is a deep cut, but has anybody else seen any of that show they're making about making The Godfather?
No.
No.
So there's a dude in it playing Joe Colombo who's a New York gangster, and I swear to God they add another marble to his mouth every scene. He's in it just. He's like. This book or Godfather makes us look stupid. And every scene with him is at that register. It's wild.
He's a chubby bunny champion.
Oh,
Well, can no one do a good Brooklyn accent? Is that what it is? Or
Without it coming off as insulting, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
So, Simona, what are we talking about today?
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about a South Korean drama series called Tomorrow, and it premiered on NBC TV on April 1st, and it is available for streaming on Netflix. And episodes are put up Fridays and Saturdays, so this week will be the final 2 episodes. And Tomorrow is adapted from a webtoon of the same name created by Llama. The drama stars Kim Hee-sun, Ruwon, Lee So-hyuk, and Yoo Ji-eun, and they're the principal Reaper characters in this drama. So the reason why we wanted to discuss this drama is because this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Tomorrow addresses issues related to mental health, so school and workplace bullying, sexual violence, suicide, eating disorders, and the show even addresses a rather
Dogs.
controversial topic of World War II comfort women. So if it's okay
And
with all of you...
dogs.
I'm sorry?
The dog episode. It addresses canine love also.
It does, yeah. 'Cause it,
Not in a weird way.
it,
In a very
I'm like-
heartfelt way, actually.
yeah, that was one of the few episodes that made me almost cry. That was a really...
Is
was
it like
very
a
well-
hot-
That
Hachiko
was the
situation?
episode that made you almost cry?
No, it was one of the episodes that made me almost
Oh.
cry.
Is it like a Hachiko
Folks, you put a
situation? I only got
dog
to
in
episode
anything,
8.
I'm
No,
crying.
so essentially and by the way, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen up until like the
Episode 14.
spoilers. So
We
essentially-
can't spoil the ending because we don't know it yet.
So essentially,
Good
with
to go.
with that case, I'm trying to find.
Also, I'm going to throw out the content trigger warning for this one for
Oh, yeah.
anybody. Since this is a show that deals with the themes Simona talked about, there will be discussions on these as well.
Yeah.
Or at least mentions of them.
So that's the Kim Kong case, and Kim Kong is the name of the dog in the story. And essentially, he's a Pomeranian who is nearing the end of his life, and he has such a deep, loving bond with his owner. Then, rather than put his owner through the grief of watching him succumb to his illness, to his old age, he decides to run away. So the Grim Reapers it's a very unusual case because they've never dealt with animals. So the Grim Reapers have what's called the Red Light app, and that alerts them to potential suicide risks. So the essential Reapers of this drama are part of the risk management team, and their goal is to prevent suicides and allow individuals to live out the lifespan that essentially God has doled out to them. And so they get the case of
Do you
this
mean the
dog-
director?
No, God, in the story.
The the director. Yes,
director.
the
Oh,
director.
sorry. I thought you meant the
Yes.
director of the drama. I am so sorry. I didn't realize. Yeah, the Jade
Wow,
Emperor.
you saw that?
For a
was
little
like
bit of context.
Fire behind her eyes there. She was like, no.
So for a little bit of context,
Sorry.
basically the Reapers serve basically what would be God, who they call the director because they also adapt with the times. They're
was
modern.
phenomenal, by the way.
She was
She
great.
was great.
She's an awesome
great.
actress.
I loved when she came in the first episode and was like handing people like waters and like
Right, here's
stuff like
like some
that.
vitamin
Yeah.
D.
just like looked like a
She
sweet little
is a
innocent old lady.
fantastic actress. I don't know if her nickname is Korea's mother, because she plays a lot of mothers in dramas. She is phenomenal, this actress. So yeah, she plays the Jade Emperor.
Jade Emperor, King of Heaven, who everyone thinks is a man, but
Yeah.
turns out to be a very fierce mother-like woman. So in the afterlife, souls are judged based on the lives they lived. And depending on the lives that they lived, if they've done bad things, their punishments are according to the bad things that they did. So they're punished severely for the bad things they've done. So in this case, we have a man who has gone into a coma, and he's kind of half dead. So as a trial period, he's following the risk management, which is a newly formed team that deals with suicide victims or people who are at risk, because unfortunately, hell in this case is kind of getting overrun with souls.
I'm
'Cause-
sorry, they're the
yeah.
crisis management team. I messed that up. I don't know what
Oh,
I
because
called
in
them
the thing
before.
it said RM.
They're
risk management.
risk management.
Management.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different translation.
Oh, yeah, it could
Same
be.
thing, same difference
Yeah.
there, I would say. So, yep. So we follow the adventures of this.
I don't think
this
people will
newly
call
found
us out in
thing.
the comments. Don't worry.
Just like, yeah, so as Amanda said, so Jun Wong is the young man that ends up falling into a coma because he
He's
essentially...
really cute. He's really cute.
He's
he-
adorable.
He is...
And he's hilarious.
He,
That show needs levity, and he provides
is,
it.
Shout out to Ruwan, you're killing it in this drama. Hearts. Yeah, so essentially he goes for a job interview. He doesn't get the job, and he's walking along the bridge.
Very sad boy.
And he sees this man about to commit suicide, and that kind of goes into, and I'm not going to go into all the statistics, but since this is a drama that addresses suicide, I just wanted to just say what some of the statistics are. And this is according to the World Population Review. So South Korea has one of the highest suicide rates of any developed country, 28.6, and that's number of suicides per 100,000. The male rate of suicide is 40.2, and female is 16.9.
A lot of these Asian cultures, I know because I'm more on the Japanese side. I know Simona's more on the Korean side because I watch J stuff, she watched K stuff. I know Japan's similar in the same way that I know it's been going down, but there's a lot of a lot of old traditional values that still withhold, cause a lot of these problems. Also, I know South Korea is a fashion mecca.
Yes.
At this point, and so body images, mental health, stuff like that is a massive problem.
They have a huge cosmetic surgery industry, because one of the things is it's mandatory to put your face on your job application. So
If your eyes aren't wide
exactly,
enough,
and one of the gifts for high school is that parents will let their kids get plastic surgery, because the more you conform to a certain beauty standard, the higher your chances of getting hired are. And there's also
my God.
there's a big
I know
thing,
one of the most one of the more popular surgeries is double eyelid surgery,
Yes.
where they basically try to make your eyes look a little bit bigger.
they give you that lid, the Ampy Campbell lid, or
I couldn't tell you what it is.
not
I've only
not
read
even
about
not
it.
every Caucasian person and it's not strictly Caucasian people are the only ones that have this lid. It can be found in any race, but it's essentially it's to give you that natural look of having, I don't know if it's called the Ampy Camp, I can't remember now what it's called, but it gives you that lid, so it almost like that crease. So, and that's a very popular eye surgeon. It was popularized, I think, during World War II. It was an American, I think, surgeon that brought it to Korea.
Of course.
And ever since then, it's sort
Of
of
course.
it's exploded from there. But generally speaking, and this is also according to the World Health Organization, so the suicide rate in South Korea is the 4th highest in the world. One factor in its high suicide rate is suicides among the elderly. Traditionally, children have been expected to care for their aging parents. However, because the system has mostly disappeared in the 21st century, many older adults commit suicide rather than feel like they are a financial burden on their families. In addition to the elderly, students have higher than average suicide rates, at least partially because they feel high levels of pressure to succeed academically.
Yeah. Isn't that the same, Amanda? Isn't that the same in Japan as well?
They do, but a lot of it is more so elderly care. They still hold on to the tradition, at least for the most part in the modern time, where they will take care of the elderly. But there's also a lot of people, a lot of the men tend to work very even into their old age. And if I know one of the big rumors and or things going on in Japan is a lot of people end up taking out loans, or there's this whole big thing where if they get fired, it's basically the end of their life, and if they can't provide for their families anymore, it's they would rather die and let their families collect the life insurance.
Which we saw in this episode. I mean, in the show.
Yes.
Exactly.
We saw the attempt at least.
Yeah, one of those cases,
it can be very hard, and also the respect. I think it was episode 6 of Tomorrow where it dealt with the old man who served.
Yeah.
Yes.
That actually had me crying.
Yeah, that
the
one.
Most.
That
I
was
didn't
one of the best
expect
ones.
For
I
that
thought.
one to get me the most, because I've definitely I haven't seen that much of one.
Yeah.
Of in other animes and shows I've watched with a similar theme, but I was they did such a good job on episode 6 where it was an old man who's at the end of his life, and he served. I think it was World War II.
It was the Korean War.
It was the Korean War. I thought so. And the lack of disrespect from a lot of people. He wore the hat. It's kind of it shows that veterans not even in Korea. It's kind of we say thank you for your service, but a lot of people don't
But that's it.
recognize it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I thought the last scene of that one where it's the guy taking his picture and stuff like that, he was he served, and he was oh wow, and so he kept the picture.
Yeah.
It's a very noble thing for our country's heroes.
balled out. That episode was good. That episode balled out.
I wouldn't stop crying for like half that
Yeah.
episode. I was like, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's reunited with his mom at the end.
I thought that was
I'm
so
like,
sweet.
yeah.
I was like, Mama.
There are a lot of those
came
moments, because especially with him, he also had a lot of guilt because he took under his wing a younger boy who ended up losing one of his legs in that episode, and so the young man almost didn't want to live.
Cursed him out, said, get out of
So-
here. I don't want to see you anymore.
Yeah.
You ruined my life.
He
And so
pulled
lived with
Lieutenant Dan
it. Yeah.
in Forrest Gump, you know?
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Also,
I don't mean to laugh at that.
to pull it into another movie, the part where they're like giving him his suit and they're like, your identity will be gone forever. I was like, my God, did they just like take shot for shot, line for line, Men in Black?
Oh, we're getting you a suit.
Yeah.
You're getting you.
You have to dress properly. It was like they
But
stole
they don't
they
wear
stole
these
every
outfits
line.
out on the field. So I'm like, what was the
Right.
point of the
Yeah,
suits?
I loved it how the other guy on the team said all that, but at the same time he's saying that he's wearing this oversized jacket
Yeah,
with these sweatpants.
She's wearing like
His
Yeah.
name is
street
Ryungu.
fashion.
Yeah, Ryungu, and he has an interesting backstory, and I know that you all probably haven't gotten to the point where you learned his
I did.
backstory.
I made it up to episode 14.
Oh, okay, yeah. What's interesting about this drama too is that they also go into the backstories of each of the Reapers and why they chose to become Reapers
That's why
rather
I was
than
trying to get
reincarnate.
through it. I was
And
really trying to like.
We
get to
got to
that
talk
episode.
about at some point we got to talk about those two, the two lovers, who sorry.
No, you
No.
can spoil it for me.
No,
You're
I
fine.
am so excited. I'm going to fangirl heavily on this thing. That is one of my favorite parts about this drama. I am so looking forward to it. I love it
No,
so
you're
much.
good. The show
I
caught me a
love
lot
it.
better than I thought it was
Jump right
going
into
to,
it.
especially after
Yeah.
the first episode.
Yeah, no, it's really good because they address these very important issues. And like one thing I also want to discuss going back to students, which I didn't know, in Korea there's a national English language examination
Yes.
that takes place.
Yeah,
I
think
did
it's
not
the
know
same.
this.
They do
but,
it in Japan too.
But if you are late, you will actually get a police escort to take this examination.
They take their testing very seriously.
Because that determines essentially what college you go to, and what college you go to essentially determines what you can do with the rest of your life. So a lot of
Talk
teens.
about pressure. My God.
Well,
would
that's
not
why a
do
lot of
well.
them, like they're trying to also have, because mental health in general in Asia is not really addressed. It's almost like it's not
Ignored.
seen, it's not heard.
It's getting better as
Yeah.
the years go by, as it becomes like they try to get rid of the traditional, like, oh, just deal with it. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have a problem, people are worse off. It's kind of like when like a normal person in America just says, it's like when someone, I'm depressed, and they just go, don't be. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it is in
yeah.
other areas, and a lot of people are starting to address more of this problem,
Yeah.
especially with generational trauma.
Yeah, especially
Go
like
Disney.
the scene with the with the bridge when
homeless
Jun
man?
Wong's character first sees that guy about to commit suicide. There's a famous bridge in Korea called the Mapo Bridge, and that's the site of a lot of suicides. So in 2012, there was this initiative to sort of bring the suicide rates down. It failed miserably. Suicides increased. But they have like signage on the bridge, like saying like, "Have you eaten today? How are you feeling today?" They
great
have
bridge.
they have lights that light up in the dark, so if you're walking at night, you have some light. But like I was telling my mom, initiatives are great when it comes to trying to address mental health, especially since sexual assault is also a major part of this drama. It's a huge problem in Korea as well, and it's underreported. Heavily underreported, and the sentences for a lot of these cases, there's this one episode which deals with sexual assault, and the perpetrator he comes from a good family, gets
That's the
away with
point.
basically not even suffering any prison time. And it talks about the impact that the assault, when it initially happens on a victim, but what happens after the assault, when even social media, the words of people who basically say, what was she wearing? Why was she out at night? You know, she asked for it. And there's a scene which it almost broke me. Like I had to like stop watching at a certain point, where the lawyer for the guy says, well, when he put his arm around you, why didn't you fight him off? He says, well, I thought because she has a twin in the story. And she says, I thought it was my twin. And you see in the flashback, he puts his arm around her, the perpetrator, and she thinks it's her twin. And when she realizes it isn't, she like freezes. And he says, if you say anything, I'll kill you. Like, continue walking. So he says, well, you know, you could have fought him off. You could have called for help. And she says, I couldn't, or I tried. And the worst thing is the assault was actually recorded at a certain point. So you see him slamming her to the ground. But there still is that, well, you didn't fight hard enough. And there were businesses around you at the time. Like, why didn't you try getting help? Mm-hmm. So in Korea, it's very underreported, and especially with a lot of foreign women, because there's a lot of foreign women that go into Korea, they have high rates of sexual assault. And because of language barriers, they don't really report it either. And they're trying to work to get officers, like more female officers involved in these cases, and also officers that at least speak English. Because there was this one woman where, because of the language barrier, she couldn't adequately communicate why the assault had happened, when it had happened. So
I think the same thing happens to women here, though, too.
It
I mean,
does,
this is
yeah.
a universal.
But there's a difference in ours is where we're more proactive. I'm not going to say like we're more proactive, but we're more. There's a mindset.
We've
There's a
been
different mindset,
more
yeah.
proactive maybe in the last few years.
Yeah,
But
but at least in like the Asian countries, it's like it's hard enough for a woman to get a job, especially when she's on her own, and with the expectation of she's not gonna be there for long
because she's going to get married
she's
and then
probably
have
gonna
a
get
family.
married. I know Japan has declining birth rate right now because most of the women are now starting to go into the work field to be what they want to do what they want to do. So they don't want to stay in the tradition of, oh, I have to like get married and do all of this. They want to be themselves.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of like when it comes to like, you know, businesses that are male run for generations that they have been taught they just get away with this stuff and they've got money.
Yeah.
It's like what are you going to do? Who are you going to say? Who's going to believe you? I'm like, who's got the money?
Yeah.
Do you have the money? No. And if they even speak out on it, you know, their coworkers might look at them differently. They might not view them as the victim. They might view them as trying to sleep their way to the top.
Yep.
They might also think like, well, he's giving her attention. Why doesn't she take it? And it's like, wow, she's a butthead. I had to watch my word. So it's like there's a lot of weird same thing happens in the US. There's actually, I think it was, what was it? Brooklyn Nine-Nine actually had a good episode where, and that's a comedy show, where Diaz is trying to tell a woman to, like, you know, not to come forward on her sexual assault because she works for a big company, but one of the other guys tells her she should go forward with this really big case. But the problem is that she may win the case, but her public image and everything, like, you know, the people in her job, she will probably lose her job. Mm-hmm. It's a double-edged sword. And whereas, like, you know, people are incredibly brave for coming forward, it's in the end might be harder. And that's not to say anybody who suffers sexual abuse that way isn't gonna have that in the back of the mind. So suicide can almost seem like the
Exactly. And it's also like there was another recent case of domestic violence in Korea, and it was actually filmed. The entire assault was filmed, and the assault resulted in her death because she had internal bleeding. And one of the attorneys said, well, we have to investigate that the assault happened, and whether it was normal dating violence or extreme dating violence. And
There's
I'm like,
normal dating violence?
apparently there is. And her family is outraged, and they're trying to get it prosecuted, but it was caught on film. The entire thing was filmed in the hallway of her apartment. So there's evidence that the assault happened, but it's this mindset that it's almost like what happens in private is private.
Well, and you know, that's interesting that you bring that up, because in a lot of the episodes, especially like in the flashbacks and stuff like that, there was like a lot of the characters were saying like it's best not to get involved.
Exactly.
It's best to mind my own business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they had to break. That's why that new guy was so good, because he didn't want to just stay complacent. He wanted to punch that guy in the face.
Part of it is like in the episode where there's the bullying case with
episode 1,
Eunbi, who's the writer. Part of the reason why Rion tells Junwon not to interfere is because since they're in the memory.
Well, that's different. I mean, you know, in the flashbacks, like with the people that aren't Reapers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the flashbacks, the normal the regular living people were saying, I need to not get involved in stuff like that.
That is very
Yeah.
much the attitude. Like, there are
Yeah.
people that have been physically assaulted in front of people and nothing is done. No one steps in. It's
Yeah.
that culture almost like where it's personal.
It's like it could happen to me if I speak out.
Family
or I get
handles
fired.
that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But was there something that you wanted to mention specifically? Because you mentioned something earlier, and I want to make sure we talk about it. Was it the
It was
two?
the relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, this the most recent episode
Yes.
where you find out that, I don't know their names.
Rion?
Her name is
Her
Rion
and the other guy.
and
There's-
Jungil.
Yeah, Jungil. You find out that they're lovers.
They were.
Are they? I had
Yeah.
a whole feeling this. I only
Did you,
got
I
to
didn't.
episode 8.
I didn't predict that whatsoever.
Is this
No, I
episode
did because I was
14?
like, "There's this
Yeah.
weird."
They were married. They
They're
were
married,
husband
yeah.
and wife.
Were they?
Yeah.
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 Well, all right. I, mean, I just said lovers,
Yeah.
but yeah, they're married.
They're
Married, yeah,
Husband and
yeah.
wife, yeah.
For the record, it's okay for them to spoil it for me because I'll watch it anyways, and I don't care, and I'll read the webtoon,
No,
and I'll find out eventually.
No,
anyway.
honestly,
I don't care.
honestly, it's going to be worth it because the two actors have amazing chemistry.
There was so much sexual tension. How did you not catch that? Like, literally, when she signs the contract with him the first time, like, I guess I'll get. I'm like, every time they were in a room together, he would look at her and with such, and she would look at him with intent. I'm like, yo, there's something going on.
I'll tell you what I thought. I thought, and I maybe it was episode 8 with the scammer.
Yes.
I thought
That's the one I was on.
the scammer was going to be Jungil.
Yeah.
Am I saying his name right?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be him. And I thought that's the direction the show was going to go.
Oh, okay.
I thought the scammer was going to be him because he wanted to collect souls.
Oh.
And
I
I
don't
was
think
like,
he's that desperate though.
well, obviously now we know that. But at the time I had no idea. They did not, for the first 12 episodes, they did nothing to suggest other than tension between them.
Well, have you noticed something?
Sexual
This is
tension.
something I picked up on, and my mother did too. Rion wears eyeshadow.
Well,
The red.
yeah.
She always
Yeah.
wore the
So
red.
I knew that she was the girl. I didn't know
Yeah, they made that quite
that
apparent.
guy was him.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
the Reaper who
'Cause he's
who
kind of a dick.
escorts souls
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
to
He-
hell
Very
yeah,
much
he's,
so.
he's part of the escort team.
Yeah, and
He's
he
the
and
manager.
Rion
Yeah.
were husband and wife. See, I when I saw episode 14, I'm like, wait a minute, they're the same person.
Yeah,
This
so-
makes complete sense.
And since that episode kind of addresses an issue that's related to comfort women, I kind of want to talk about that because it is a very important topic.
There was actually a very important graphic novel that came
Yeah.
out about comfort women, I think, a couple of years back that got a lot of praise because now that they've started to actually
Yes.
incorporate them into the history instead of hiding them,
Yes.
because they were very important.
Yeah.
As much as you had, it wasn't only Korea doing it either.
No,
you had
Japan.
a lot of during the feudal time in Japan. You had
And in China,
consorts who would get hired, and or a lot of women would go out onto the battlefield and look for samurai to pay to
yeah.
have a night with them.
Yeah, so essentially, with the episode 14, it's revealed that Rion and Jungil were married in their past lives. He was a soldier, and he was on the border. And at that time in Korea, China had a lot of influence in what was going on in Korea. So the current empire had changed, I think, to the Qing Empire at that time.
Yep.
And it happened throughout Korea's history where they would expect tributes of women and like food and some kind of goods. So women would be taken to, I'm going to call it China, although it would not have been known as China at that time. They'd be taken to China.
So it would have been like the what was the dynasty that changed again?
I think it was the Qin dynasty.
The Qin dynasty.
Byzantine Empire.
We could say
That's
the
different side of the country.
Oh, is
we
it?
can say like the Qin dynasty since it's not
Yeah,
China
the Qin-
at the time.
So essentially,
History
they would
is
get
something.
tributes sent to them. So with that episode, that's essentially what happens. There are these barbarian armies that are raiding villages and taking women. So Rion,
The Hun, right?
Such is the time period.
So Rion is in her attempt to rescue her servant. She gets captured. She and the other women are marched practically into the border, the Qin border. But because she's so intelligent and she enables them basically to escape. Essentially, when they get home, they're told that because
Yeah. Wait.
whoa,
You're not gonna. You're not gonna let our viewers know how they get out. That was badass.
How did she poison the soup?
Poisons them all. Yeah.
That's my favorite McWeens.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
she's
killing
an
people in
incredible
shows.
character in general. But yeah, she
man,
poisons them all.
She's dope.
She takes them. She gets them
She's
right
full of
to the
Naples.
gates, and essentially they're told, because you were compromised by barbarians, you are not Korean, and you must go back to the Chin border.
Well, it's like they also felt, though, that they were spies.
Yeah.
Now,
True,
that they
but
could be spies.
But I think the major part was because they thought they were compromised. Well, her husband shows up, badass that he is, and says, "You touch these women, I'm going to kill you." And the women
He
return to
will
their
Smith
lives.
them.
Exactly.
You know.
So with them, so with these women, with his wife in particular, you learn that her mother-in-law,
Who is...
who's
A
evil,
wench.
They're always
God.
evil.
She,
The mother-in-laws are always evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like any Chinese like anime that I've seen, or like manhwa that I've read, or a Korean one, whenever it's a historical fiction coming out of
They're
Japan, or
always
something,
evil.
they're always evil.
That's how it
those,
works.
Have you seen those stupid ads on YouTube for those games where it's like the Empress games where you can choose to become like an Empress?
Yeah, yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
the one they show all the time is literally like, haha, my son's not going to marry you. And she has like a poison needle and she kills her and you're like,
Oh.
do you want to start this route again? I'm like, no. That's my first order
Wow.
of business. Kill the mom-in-law, because get out of here. You're my problem. I already know. Done.
Yeah, mother-in-laws are always a problem. So essentially, her mother-in-law talks to her.
Stepmoms, mother-in-laws.
Mother-in-laws, am I right, fellas?
Mother-in-law. They're always a problem.
Mothers. Anything with the name mother as like some part of the title. Real moms? Maybe not.
No, not the real moms. And her mother-in-law basically says that due to the rumors that are spreading that you essentially slept with a barbarian, you know, if you truly respect the family honor, kill yourself. Rion holds out for as long as she possibly can. Of course, Jung-gil, being the awesome man that he is, completely supports her, and he even goes on some killing sprees if he hears you talking about his wife in the wrong
Yeah.
way.
He went on a
Like,
massive Will
that's
Smith.
what I said. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
what'd you
but,
say?
but that's what men do when their women are being talked about.
Sword hand.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, Rion...
Keep his wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Exactly.
Instead of a hand coming out, he's like,
Slap.
he's got a knife ready to go like.
Can we put that meme in the video? But
I have it on my computer if you need it. I saved it. We were afraid that they would take it down off the internet, so I like
that's never
immediately
going
got
away.
it.
we can add that meme.
Yep.
So she kills herself, and you also find out why their thread has been severed.
She killed herself,
The
right?
red thread, yeah.
They
that-
mentioned that with the episode 5, which also got me crying at the end of it because I was like, oh.
Which one was 5?
That was the guy who tried to kill himself after he
Oh, after his girlfriend
thought
died.
he killed him.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the end, it had me crying because I was like, oh. And then as soon as they met each other, I was like, oh. They said the red thread. If one of them had killed.
Right.
Yeah, it would
themselves,
essentially sever it forever.
So that episode, the guy, right?
Yes.
He's obviously suicidal. They're
Yes.
talking to him. How did she just like she just shows up as a doctor? Like that was
They try to find a means of being able to integrate.
but they didn't explain that.
Yeah,
they didn't explain that whatsoever.
They did. They
It's
kind of
the
jumped
magic of the universe, Lou. Move on and get with the program.
He couldn't handle the subject. No, we're joking. We're joking.
Yeah, they didn't explain that. And
They
then
also
like
didn't explain
I
a
had the
lot
same thing with
because-
the TV writer in like the second episode when they show up and they're like the producers of the show, basically.
No, they're interns.
Oh, they were workers. They were like interns
But,
or
like-
whatever.
Interns.
Yeah, like how did they get that
But, like,
job? I
No,
guess whatever.
because essentially,
Magic. It's magic,
Rion
look.
tells them that we have to look for any positions that are currently being offered for hire.
So
The
so she
makeup
was
one was the only one I saw in which they actually had to go through an interview process.
yeah, just
And
Well, I
even
guess you
then,
could
she smacked him in the
assume they-
face after he like fell on a.
she
thing,
becomes a
and I was like, oh.
psychiatrist without any kind of.
Well, I
Did,
guess,
did they just Google job
Well-
openings and that guy just happened
well,
to be in that
Reapers are
hospital?
really good
well,
at
she has
faking
powers
certificates.
too, so I'm pretty
Oh.
sure.
Another problem I had. I'm sorry. Another problem I had. the episode that they time traveled was easily my favorite episode. if you have powers of time travel, why aren't you using it more often?
Because you're not supposed
You're
to
not
F with
supposed
time, Lewis.
to.
Hasn't sci-fi taught you anything?
But they did.
But because it was a
they
special
kinda-
favor.
Is that the one with his friend?
Yes.
Yeah, that was weird. They're not supposed to F with that.
It's
and
a
as
special
nice as
favor. Because I think it's a special favor. The Jade Emperor, which is why also there's another theory about
The Jade Emperor also mentions that she can't be fair at any time. They're literally like, this is not fair. And she's like, well, I can't do this and be fair. I have to do this and be not fair at the same time. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You can just not be fair because death is not fair.
Yeah.
Life is not fair. And I'm like, no, you cannot do that just because he's your best friend and you're a temp.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I think there was some exception made, and also I think it goes back to people have theories about who I can never remember his name. I'm so sorry.
Yo, you're good. I got the
Jun Wong, like who he really is. Like I have a theory about who he may actually be.
the person she's supposed to save.
No,
The character who leaves at like on the dot at like 11 o'clock.
no, that's Ryungu.
Okay.
That's no, it's the young man the one who's in the coma right now.
Oh, okay.
I have a theory about who he could actually be in relation to Ryeon and Jungil.
Okay,
Do you
let's
think
hear
they're
it.
his son?
I think
Or not
so.
son. Maybe
That'd be
they're like a
18th
long lost relative.
grandson or something.
Can't be their son.
Yeah.
Reapers shouldn't be allowed to breed.
No,
And
no,
also, they
no.
were together like
They're
400
dead.
years before
No.
now.
It's
No,
like
but
vampires and Twilight trying to make a
people-
baby out of a dead body.
You people
No.
are-
No.
Well, it is possible because one of the rumors
If
surrounding
he's their
Ryeon-
kid, I am turning off the TV.
Are you gonna rage quit?
Yeah.
Well, because one of the reason why I kind of came with that theory too is because before Ryeon committed suicide, there was a theory that she may have been pregnant. Now she and Jungil were married. Married people consummate their unions.
Of course.
So it's
Sometimes
possible
watch.
that she was pregnant without realizing it, committed suicide, and her death also resulted in the death
So you
of
think because the child was
an unborn
innocent,
child.
it's a reborn?
because also
makes sense.
if you look at there's another episode, the Comfort
400
Woman.
years later?
But there's a remember the
They're
Comfort
reborn.
Woman
Don't
episode?
Question the will of the universe.
It's reincarnation. Remember the episode with the Comfort Women? How
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
There you go.
how Junwoo was? You see that he was a resistance fighter. That was one of his past lives. He was a resistance fighter.
Yes.
So if he's being reborn, because the reason why Ryeon and Jungil, first of all, Ryeon can't reincarnate because she committed suicide. So by committing suicide, she's ruined any chances of reincarnation. Jungil, I don't know why he chose to become a Reaper. They haven't revealed what he did to himself. I don't think he committed suicide.
You mean June Gill?
Jungil, sorry. I don't think he committed suicide because he has an extreme hate for those that commit suicide. Like one
I
of the things.
wonder why.
Well,
Yeah, I wonder why.
Well, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I thought before the reveal of Ryeon's backstory that she must have been somehow like she killed herself. She took her own life, and subconsciously he realizes this, and that's why he has that resentment towards her. But this is just a theory with regards to the young man. He could very well not be related to them at all. But the Jade Emperor says something to him in that episode where she reveals Ryeon's backstory. She says, "What is she to you? And why does she matter so much to you?" And then she just leaves it like that. So they may be connected in some way, or that's just I could be completely wrong.
As I
There's
said,
no
maybe she's the
connection.
person she's supposed to save.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because
She
That's
keeps
what I thought.
mentioning
The
the
person
person,
they're
the
supposed to
person
save,
you're
yeah.
supposed to
it
save.
could be, and that's just a theory.
Because he's a temporary
Yeah.
Exactly.
Reaper, so there might
Something's
be a
gonna
choice
happen.
where he might try to kill himself to go back
Exactly.
into that life again to try to help her,
Me and
and she
Amanda
might
are
have to
in
make the
cahoots on
choice to
this one.
save him.
Oh well,
Yeah.
We're
when
in
we
sync on
watch,
that.
are you planning on finishing? Because it'd be cool that if we could talk about it. Like, are you
I'm gonna read
planning
the
on?
comic. That's what I'm
I
gonna.
mean, I watched 14 episodes. Might as well watch the last two.
Okay.
I got webtoons.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then talking about comfort women, because that kind of relates to Ryeon's backstory about the women that were captured, and those who returned were ostracized because of the shame of having being essentially violated and victimized. They're to blame. So comfort women is a very controversial topic, especially with the Japanese government, because essentially they've denied that it ever happened. They're really not willing to admit that they even took women as their sex slaves. And a lot of these women, I call them women, but there were girls as young as 10 and 11 that were taken. And this happened in Korea, the Philippines, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, and Indonesia. So these women were taken to these camps where they were essentially forced to service Japanese soldiers. And a lot of these women, due to their age, are dying. But they're trying to basically essentially make people never forget what happened. So in the Philippines, there is an organization for these comfort women, but a lot of them are dying as well because of the simple fact that they're getting older. But a lot of these women, when they returned, they could not return to their homes. They had that stigma against them. And you saw that in that Comfort Woman episode, where after everything that they've endured, they're told, you were better off being dead. Why did you come back? There were also, and I didn't realize this, there were also European women, if you were living in the territories of these nations at the time, that were also used as sex slaves. There were Dutch women, Australian women as well.
Oh, yeah.
They were taken and used as sex slaves as well. So I know that in San Francisco, there's a monument to the Comfort Women, and the Japanese government severed, because I think San Francisco was a sister city to Tokyo, and the Japanese government severed that relationship because of the Comfort Woman monuments. They're also demanding that Berlin remove a monument in front of the Japanese embassy in Berlin that's dedicated to comfort women. Supposedly they have made apologies, but they always claim that these women were prostitutes and that they willingly went with the Japanese soldiers, that there was no kidnapping, women weren't forced to do anything, but I call BS on that. So I'm surprised that they actually had an episode about this because it is so controversial. But I'm glad that they did, because what these women went through shouldn't be forgotten. And it's just very important. And I think it tied in nicely with Rion's backstory, because essentially that's what the Qin dynasty was doing. They were taking women as tributes. So every year, you had to essentially give up your non-married female relations as a tribute to the Chinese empire, essentially. And I don't know if they ever really returned. I think most of them never did. So that was one of the hardest episodes to watch.
Yeah, that was I didn't know about Comfort Women before this.
Yeah.
So that was powerful stuff. I do know about Comfort Food.
There is a graphic novel I just looked up. It is in the system if anybody ever wants to check it out, about the Korean comfort women, called Grass. You can always order it via our library. But that was the graphic novel that came out after Korea started actually. There are other ones, but I know this one's the big one that came out.
It's called
So,
Grass.
Grass.
It's about
Korean comfort women.
Korean.
It's the history and story of them. It was met with a lot of acclaim, and a lot of people were
And
like,
it's a graphic novel?
It is a graphic novel. So you can order it in our library system. So
Do we own it?
we do not own it.
Why
but
not?
I don't know. At the time of when it came out, I don't think our current person who's in charge of graphic novels had ordered it, but that is fine. We can always put in a request. So that's totally fine. So, but whereas the show has a lot of dark themes in it, I do also think it is a nice celebration of life in general.
Oh yeah. So
On a more
that
positive note.
that time travel episode, I gotta tell you, I mean, that was probably the one where I teared up the most. I was just like, all right, these writers, it's extremely soapy, but they get it. They know how to get to the heartstrings, and they did
That's
a good.
the kind
They
of
did a
story
good
this
job.
is it's a heartstrings, because every other kind of story that I've heard, that I've seen, that is pretty much just like this, always tugs on a heartstring.
Yeah, but they
Of
did such a
mine.
good job of that episode, like pulling that together. Like the June Wong says that line to his friend, or his friend says that line to him. June Wong remembers it. Then they go back in time. He writes the note on the thing of chicken. And then, by the way, that fried chicken, I know I said this to you, that fried chicken looked so good.
It's a big thing there.
In
I
that
know
episode?
in Japan they do a thing, like, it's actually a seasonal food. Like during
Oh.
Christmas, you go and you buy a bucket of
Yeah.
fried chicken.
KFC somehow sold themselves as Christmas food in Japan.
It's a
Really?
big deal, yeah.
Wow.
They
It's
have
fun.
like holiday
Well,
buckets.
also like
It's
because
delicious.
Christmas isn't celebrated
Yeah.
in Japan as a religious holiday. It's just
Yeah, no, it's
celebrated,
just fun.
and
Yeah.
people actually will hang out with friends rather than families on
Yeah.
Christmas
In Korea,
Eve.
there's the whole thing. Their fried chicken is big. Fried chicken and beer. But they have competition.
So good.
Every fried chicken store tries to outdo the other, so they have these
boy.
weird recipes that they create, these combinations.
If you want to get fat, go to Korea.
Yeah, there's even a YouTube channel.
We should
where
have
they
had
British...
fried chicken for this episode.
Oh, that would have
Don't
been nice.
tempt me.
The last time I had fried chicken was when I was in 6th grade. Is the
What?
last time I had,
What?
ever had fried
What?
chicken.
Simona, you gotta
Disgusting.
Why?
get fried chicken.
Is there a reason for that,
I
or
just-
it just hasn't come around?
The ghosts in her house won't let her have it.
That too. They're very possessive of the chicken. No, it's because
Not even like a chicken cutlet.
Simona.
Listen.
Really?
You gotta go to jail.
I've had chicken cutlets, Lou. I'm talking about fried chicken. Like fried chicken, like with the.
Like Southern fried chicken.
Like southern fried. Okay. But like why
Don't
can
make me
we?
hop over the
Let's.
table.
Chicken
I'll pull
cutlet
a.
is
I'll
fried
pull a
chicken.
Ryong
It's different.
I
become
think
become a
still fried
psychiatrist.
No, I think
It
it's
is,
because
just
in my family it just wasn't a big thing. We don't really eat fried chicken in the traditional KFC bucket kind of way. We don't have that kind of. Even when we make chicken, it was always like barbecued. We've never like deep fried it.
You never had Popeyes?
No.
I've never had Popeyes
I'm not
either.
gonna lie.
No.
My boyfriend
But
goes
I've
occasionally
had
goes to KFC, and it makes me angry because he
Shit.
only gets the chicken strips, and I get really upset because I'm like I want like a drumstick
Yeah.
or something, and he never orders it, and I get very upset when he just orders chicken fingers, and I'm like,
Best.
this is fine, I go.
Anybody else a fan of chicken and waffles?
Love chicken and
That's-
waffles.
That's,
Yeah.
that's
If you're ever in the
Had
South,
chicken.
go to Bojangles.
Chicken and
Never been to Bojangles.
Oh, Bojangles! If you ever find yourself a Bojangles, better than KFC.
Yeah, like it had
Oh,
Chicken and
I
biscuit in the
believe it
morning
because
before
honestly,
school?
I'm not a huge fan of KFC. I don't think KFC is that great.
No.
I do think Popeyes is better, and
Popeyes is
probably
better.
anything you would get south of New York is
It
better.
was the end of the
Bojangles.
year. Like I remember it was the last day of school, and one of my classmates, I think the teacher bought it for the class.
All right,
Yeah, that
Well,
was the last time
That's
I've
a
ever had
cool
it.
teacher, and they
Yeah.
should get a raise.
I'm gonna bring in some fried chicken for you.
Yeah, but it's just it was never a thing really in my family. Like
Karage is the best fried chicken, I think.
What is karage?
Karage is Japanese fried chicken.
Where is it? Where can you
Where
get it?
is
You
it?
can get
I
it at any
make it.
Japanese place.
You make Japanese fried chicken?
Yeah.
What's different about it than American fried chicken
Um,
or Southern fried
They
chicken?
use a different oil, and they
it's
also use a different
canola
type
oil
of batter.
and it's cornstarch.
All right, so perfect. So you'll make some and bring it in.
Well, sure.
All
They're
right.
like bite-sized too, so.
Yeah, they're nice bite-sized.
Everything's bite-sized if you try hard enough.
Yeah, philosophy. Yes. But I did like that episode. I like that he tried to make it and it was garbage, and they
That was
they never
funny.
let him live it down.
Yeah.
They're like, last time you cooked,
Yeah.
it was awful.
But what about the Aguchim episode where she thinks she bought him a Gucci sweater and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Aguchim
That was funny.
instead?
I thought that was
That was
hilarious.
the first
She was
episode.
like,
Yeah. And that was good too because she's really trying to
gotta look at the ratings.
look like this this like just perfect kind of team leader kind of and everything like that.
But she
And
sucks.
and then and then you realize she has no idea what she's
Every
doing.
time
You're
she
like,
came
okay.
in encounter with like a suicidal person, she was like, "Okay, then do it." And then
Yeah.
she'd walk. I'm like, "You're
Yeah.
supposed to stop."
Yeah.
Well, I think that's sort of her like. What I like about the team is that they all complement one another. They all offer something to the team, and also she's also dealing with the other heads of the departments don't like her because she's from hell. So the fact that the Jade Emperor decided, well, someone from hell is worthy of being the head of a department rubs them the wrong way. So she's also dealing with they want this department dissolved as soon as possible. So and she's short-staffed, and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but like even the scene where, like I know what you're saying because when you first see her, there's that van filled with people trying to commit suicide or in the process of trying to commit suicide. And the way she talks to them, she takes them on this epic joyride, and she's like, "Do you still want to die?" And like, they're
no,
like,
I
"No,
want to
like,
throw up now,
save me."
and I want to die.
But I think that was her point, basically saying how you're so desperate to die okay,
She
I'm
shows them,
going
like,
to
tough-
fulfill your wish, you know. And
No, I mean I understand that. It's just
She's like trying to call their bluff, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's not the best way, especially
Yeah.
if someone's in such a massive state.
Well,
It's
that's
not
why
saying,
you-
Yeah.
do it, you won't.
that's why you have the
Yeah.
cinnamon roll known as Juwung, who's there to basically say there's a better way
Yeah.
of
The
doing
soldier
But
this.
episode when
when-
he cried.
when he does say that to her, it might be the second episode, and she's talking to the TV writer
Yeah.
who's about to jump off the ledge.
Yeah.
She's like, "These are the things you've said to yourself," and then I was like, "All right, yo, that hit me a little bit." I was like,
Yeah.
"That's powerful." Such a cheesy word, but that's more powerful than I thought it was. Because at first I was the same like you. I was like, yo, if this is how they're going to be handling suicide on the show, I was like, I don't know if we should really be talking about it. But then obviously there was a point to it, which I'm saying the writers did a very
Well,
very
a lot
good
of
job.
people, and because I'm part of a blog, and we were discussing this, John. A lot of people had an issue with how these cases were handled. Like, for example, with the eating disorder case, and I kind of agreed. Like, at the end of that episode, because I've listened to people who suffer from eating disorders, and to get back into eating is a process. Like, one girl said, I was given a bagel with seeds. I started off with plucking a seed off the bagel. And then I had to break a tiny. So basically, it's not where you just take the bagel, like, I'm recovered now.
They
and
didn't
you-
just go and eat some fried chicken.
Yes, but what I told the people on the blog was, like, I understand that you think they're not handling well, but it's also an episodic
Right.
drama. It sort of reminds me of, like, Boy Meets World or Family Matters, how racism or violence could be solved in one episode. You just
She
need to,
also
like,
kind of represents the modern mentality of
Yeah.
what's going on of, like, you know, if you're going to do
Yeah.
it, do it. If you're not going to, then stop. Why are you even doing this? But the guy represents kind of this breaking out of that whole thing.
Yeah.
Juwung, sorry if I
Yeah.
pronounced people's names wrong.
I'm probably slaughtering them too. So
I'm sorry.
forgive us.
I'm trying my best. It's phonetics, man. But Juwung does this whole, like, he doesn't want to sit by the side. He doesn't want to ignore someone in pain. He doesn't want that to happen. But also, he's new. It's still a new thing that they're coming to terms with. And sometimes you're not the best person to help, but the best thing you can do is to be there
exactly
for a
yeah.
person, not trying to already make them in a worse state than they already are. Like, someone's desperate enough to do it. The one thing you shouldn't do is to say, do it, you won't. Don't try to call them on the bluff. You should probably try to talk to them. That's why we have cops now that are trained to, like, you know, deal with suicide victims, like, right as they're on the edge, and, like, try to talk to them, try to get them to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm not going to lie here, and this is just my opinion, but the episode where they were going to do, the three of them were going to do, like, the suicide pact with
Yes.
each other,
Mm-hmm.
he hands them cards for a suicide hotline, and he's like, talk to them. But some people don't want to talk to strangers, is what the thing is. Like,
He actually
no,
gave him the
yeah.
card of his colleagues.
Oh, that's what it was. But it also said on there, like,
That's why they were
something,
getting
yeah.
the phone calls, because he gave them.
It can be hard just to throw a phone number out, and it seemed like
Yeah.
you were saying, like, you can have all these efforts, like
Yeah.
the bridge, having, like, have you eaten today? What's going
Yeah.
on? Like, you can let people know these things are happening, but it's up to them to
Yeah.
take the
And
step to want to trust someone enough
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
let them in. Sometimes it can be very hard to do that.
Yeah, and I liked. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say one of the things that I read was that I think that was done in more of like a comedic way, and that was one of the things that I read that kind of annoyed some people was that in those times of something like that they lean towards comedy or something like that. Like there's the part with the other guy Ryan Jung, Ryungu,
I
and
love him.
and you know some I forget what happens with his mom or something like that.
Yes, yeah.
But then Jun Wang or Jung Woo goes to like hug him or something to like make it light, like comedically hug him and everything like that. That was one of the things I was reading that people were like unnecessary in those moments.
The
Yeah.
only things I think I disliked about this show so far was the first episode. They put a lot of sound effects, like quirky sound effects to everything. When they tripped, it was like, "Boo, boo, boo."
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't
It
notice that. I don't
annoyed
remember that.
me
I didn't
because
notice
they got
that
rid
at
of it
all.
after the first episode because I was like, good. This is the worst choice they've
Actually,
ever
the
made.
sound effects kind of come back. It's not too heavy. So
They
just-
don't do it as
just
heavy as
prep
the first
yourself.
episode, but sometimes, like, when he slips, you hear the whoop noise, or you hear, like, something, like, kind of like
In
agitation
Korea,
animated
the
noise.
slapstick comedy is very big. Like, their
Yes.
comedy is very different. It's very
It
slapstick.
just seemed weird. I was like, this is going to be a show
Yeah.
about suicide. And they're going to be putting all these, like, cartoon sounds in
A-
here.
a
I'm like,
lot-
please don't. Like,
a lot of
someone's going to, like,
people-
try to fall down. And you hear, whoop.
No, a lot
Like,
of
don't
people
do
were
that.
upset about like how they handle things, but at the same time, it's sort of like with children's books, how you deal with a tough topic, but there has to be that positive ending to give someone hope. Yes, there are people that unfortunately they succumb to their depression and they do take their own lives. It's a reality. But I think people also need to know there's hope. You can't just can you imagine this drama? So we're aiming to reach people before they commit suicide, but every episode will hit you hard. There's no hope. Everyone dies.
I wouldn't watch it.
Exactly. While I know people are arguing you should be more realistic, I understand that. But that is why, at what they did at the beginning of the series, they offered the hotlines. Maybe at the end of each episode, maybe they should have continued to put
I think
the
after the first
hotline-
episode, you kind of already know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to be reminded every episode. It's like,
Yeah.
I get it. This is the themes. If the first episode, if those themes don't apply to me, then, don't, appeal to me, so not apply, appeal to me, then I'm not going to watch it.
Didn't they do that with 13 Reasons Why? At the end of every episode, didn't they do that?
Yeah,
Or-
because 13 Reasons Why was dumb, first off.
Oh.
And because they didn't handle that well at all.
Yeah.
They made suicide a revenge thing. And when you make a
God.
show about suicide as a revenge, it's not realistic enough as it is. Because very little amount of people actually commit suicide because they want to seek revenge on somebody. They're like, no one's going to be like, I'm going to kill myself. That'll show them. No, that's not how that works. And then make an elaborate, thing of tapes to send to all the people who hate. It's like, this is why you killed me. And it's like, but that didn't do anything. What was the outcome? What was the purpose of this whole thing? To make them feel bad you're dead. You won't even be able to see the revenge happen. Ooh, what happened?
I
That
can
was
tell
why
you have
nobody
a lot
liked it, is because suicide is not a revenge thing. Suicide is a severe problem in your head in which it's like, I'm not good enough, or someone's viewing me different. It's a multitude of different factors that make you feel like everything sucks, and that death would almost be a better alternative than seeking help when you feel that you are beyond the help. Not I'm gonna do this because they hurt me and I'm not gonna seek help, so I'm just gonna do this and make an elaborate ruse out of it, but not even be able to see it through.
Yeah.
That's the selfish type of suicide, and that's why
Saying-
people I think think that suicide is selfish, is because that's what
Yeah.
13 Reasons Why was
Uh-huh.
that
Right.
was selfish.
The only thing is, I'll say about 13 Reasons Why, and we don't have to get into 13 Reasons Why too much,
No.
but nobody had a problem with it when it was a
That's not
Pulitzer Prize-winning book.
That was the problem. Is as a book, nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
Because
It
no one
won
had to talk about it. As
prizes,
soon as it
though,
became
you know
a
what I mean?
popular TV
No one,
show.
no one had a
Yeah.
problem with it until it
Maybe
until
it
it
was
was a TV show.
Maybe and
think
I'm
they
just playing
changed a
devil's
lot, too.
advocate here. Maybe the reason why with the show, maybe because it reached more people. I mean, I don't know how broad of an appeal
It might
the
have reached
actual
more people. It
book
also
had.
might have changed it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah,
well, see, now,
I think they changed her how she killed herself. Right?
That's like what they did with Pretty Little Liars, from my understanding, is that they changed a magnitude of the stuff that was actually going on.
Also, that show, excellent for the first 10 episodes, and then you find out that there's 200 more or something. I'm exaggerating, of course.
Oh, that was like CW, right?
It was CW.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never let their stuff
Unreal,
end.
yeah.
They run
But
it
it-
forever.
They
Eventually
dragged-
did.
they
But
beat that
Katie,
dead
you were
horse.
saying?
I mean, I was just going to say that most things when they are adapted from books are
Severely changed.
changed. So
Yes.
13 Reasons Why may have been a really great book with a really great ending to it that wasn't a revenge ploy, which
Yeah.
is really if you're gonna do that, don't do that. That's really
That's why I think a lot of people think that it's a selfish thing. When
It's
it's not.
totally,
I think that's
yeah.
where that kind of comes
And
from.
I think
Yeah.
the show made a lot of mistakes.
I
Yeah.
stopped
And
watching.
it was
I
also
think.
awful. It was just terrible.
Not to
Well-
mention the fact that when I was in high school, I knew a few people who committed suicide, and I can remember people in my high school, saying how one of these kids I actually really knew, and he was we weren't like friends, but we were friendly towards each other and stuff like that. And he had his own group of friends, and he dressed in black like he was the goth kid. And you were like, I know, Amanda. And it's like, I've heard people say, well, he was goth and he was this and he was that. And I'm thinking to myself, what? That has no bearing on his.
First off, that's emo kids, not goth kids.
Exactly.
I'm messy. No.
And it's like, so to have a, like, just like 13
Stereo.
Reasons Why, to have it play out in a high school as a revenge play. I didn't watch the show because I thought it was stupid on the offset
Good choice.
of it. Is really distasteful and disgraceful, and suicide should
A lot of
never
people did
be
not
treated.
like it. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember hearing that as well, and I was like, suicide should not be treated in this way. It's a very serious issue, not only in Korea and Japan and China, but also
Around the world.
in
US,
this country and Europe. It's a very serious thing.
And I find it interesting, though, how, because a lot of the characters say how suicide is cowardly. But when you think about it, though, a person's instinct is to live.
Yeah.
Like, if you're drowning, your instinct is to fight it to go to the surface.
Yeah.
So think about someone who has finally decided, I'm going to end my life. They are going against every instinct of self-preservation, essentially ending their own life.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not cowardly. And then again, it's very dismissive if you say cowardly, because you negate the pain.
Yeah.
I mean, for a person to want to end their own life, how much pain must they be in where for them that's the only solution?
I think, though, because the only time when I would ever call somebody a coward because they committed suicide is like for people like Jeffrey Epstein, who was on
he didn't
trial.
commit suicide though.
How do you know?
Like,
We don't know.
let's be honest.
It's gonna be on the next Unsolved. It's gonna be on Unsolved Mystery in the next 10 years.
Or the kid who's now on suicide watch in jail in Buffalo after the killing spree that he did. That's the only time I will ever call that a cowardly act.
Not facing the crime.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They took the easy way out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. When you say that, the point that you brought up for someone who was emotionally distraught enough to commit suicide and people call that a cowardly act, that really like ticks me off, because it's like, well, you don't know what was going on. You don't
It's
know
like, what right do you have to judge someone else's life?
No one has any
Exactly.
right to judge.
And that's where I think the show comes in. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I highly recommend the David Foster Wallace essay on suicide. It's insightful stuff, and like he compares it to like someone being in a burning building, and how it's just like, people just jump because it's a really great read. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
To bring this on a more positive note, although there is a lot of darkness going on with a lot of people really going through people's lives and the pain that they've gone through, it also celebrates life in the sense that although we all have our struggles and our individual struggles, and what might seem hard now might not be so in the future, and you'll never find out how some of your future choices will make in the future. And sometimes there is a positivity in which you might find a friend or someone who's happy to reach out and help you in any means that they can, whether it's an online forum of people giving you positive messages, or seeing a therapist, someone who's trained to help you and to try to figure out what the problems are and how we can fix them. There's a ton of positive things to live for. Also, especially if you're someone like me who watches anime, it's like, one of those things, it's like a new anime every season. I'm gonna miss everything, and like if I don't.
and if you are somebody who is struggling with some of these issues, there are resources.
Yeah.
If you're somebody that struggles from depression, it is treatable.
Yeah.
It really is.
It takes a lot of work.
It
And
does.
But
it
it
might be
does
hard
help.
to reach out for help, but if you're really at the end of the line,
And I
just
think
take that
One
chance.
of your greatest resources can actually be your local librarian as well. Whereas we might not be qualified to talk about some things, we can always help you find resources and help you get started on your mental health journey.
Yes.
Also, some recommendations I have for people who really liked this particular story. So there is an anime called Hell Girl. which kind of focuses on the whole punishment of people who are mean. I'm not gonna lie. Hellgirl takes from the Japanese mythology the same thing as Korea, in that in your life, if you've done something wrong, your punishment will be equally as wrong, but it depends on the person you have wronged. So Hellgirl is a very interesting horror show that revolves around a girl who goes on a special website at midnight. You can write the name of the person you want to send to hell, and they investigate and see why they want that and see what the person has done. There have been a couple of instances in the anime where they have not sent the person to hell because it was actually the other person who was doing the bad thing.
Jerks.
It was really bad. It's a great show. The first episode is actually about a girl who gets bullied. Another one that kind of celebrates life, I would recommend, is the graphic novel To Your Eternity, in which this otherworldly entity becomes real, and his whole soul journey is to figure out what the meaning of life is through the lives and deaths of the people he comes in contact with. It's utterly amazing, beautifully done. It is an anime. It also is a graphic novel you can find in the system. I also recommend the show Dead Like Me. I love the show Dead Like Me. You can get that in the system as well. It does talk about Grim Reapers.
That was a good show.
I love that show. It is more comedic, but it does have its significant moments. It has its very drama moments about a girl who becomes a Grim Reaper because a spaceship toilet hits her and kills her on the day she tries to get a job. And she's apathetic and kind of a boring person. And she realizes just how much she misses being alive now that she can no longer be who she was. It's a very interesting show. I enjoy it. And also on Netflix, there's an anime called Violet Evergarden, which also makes me cry every time I watch it, where it celebrates life in that way too. The deaths of maybe a loved one. It's a girl who writes letters, and she goes around the world basically writing letters of people who can't write and writing their feelings and how they felt. And one of them is a daughter who loses a mother, and every year after her death, she sends her a letter, even after her mother's death. And it's really sad. So it's respectful, things like that. Tomorrow is a very good graphic novel. It does not have a print yet, but I'm sure as soon as it does, we'll be picking that up. Mm-hmm. Check out the show. It's very good. Liked it. Any last parting words from you guys?
I guess what I wanted to say also is this: I think society as a whole also has to stop putting a stigmatism on therapists and therapy, because I've been to therapy and I found that it really helped me. And although I was never depressed and I never had suicidal thoughts when I was very young, my parents divorced and I was angry all the time. So I found that therapy helps a lot, and I feel like, I truly feel that if you talk to somebody who's in that profession who can help you sort your emotions out, it's the best help you can absolutely give to yourself.
Agreed. And there are free resources.
Yeah.
Free therapy resources that people can take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, people in worse economic situations can't really feel like they can't get the help that they need because of their financial situation. That's not the case. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, especially with us. Come see us. We'll help you.
Yeah. And there's always this really good quote, and it might sound corny, but I think it is relevant. So it's, to the world, you're one person, but to one person, you're the world. Aww. So for anyone struggling, just remember that for one person, you are their world. So just remember that.
That's what I am to you guys, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
You are.
Call me out. So with that, I think we will end our episode here. We look forward to seeing you guys next week when we talk about Heartstopper.
Yes.
If highly anticipated.
Yes.
So
Word.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Oh.